And now for something completely different. Hello humans! We're back. Happy New Year! I have decided to try a totally new format for these videos. One of the first things I learned when researching the elements was that the columns, they're called groups, they have a lot in common with each other. And so I thought maybe start from scratch like and take each group, starting with the alkali metals and then the alkali earth metals, and then in groups, so that each video is a group. Am I explaining this right? Hopefully. And what that means is that instead of having 83 more videos, we suddenly have 19, and then the lanthanides and the actinides, and then I would do like a grand finale with oganesson and hydrogen. So 22 more videos, and they're going to be a little bit longer, but they're going to be more informative, a little less rambly. It might be great. And if you missed the rambling, let me know in the comments, and I'll incorporate that back in. But this seems like a really great idea, because that way we can like talk about the groups, and that's exciting to me. So, with no further ado, starting with lithium, and let's go. So this is lithium, used in lubricants, both mechanical and psychological. Because of its soothing and smoothing nature, I've painted it as a guru troll, serene and enlightened. Alkali metals are all quite soft. Lithium can, in fact, be cut with a butter knife. They are all also highly volatile, so exposure to air causes them to rapidly oxidize, and exposure to water makes them explode and burn with brightly colored flames, every one different, which I incorporated into the artwork. I leaned heavily into the Froudness for this group. No one has ever done trolls better than Brian and Wendy Froud, so using their book as inspiration was a no-brainer. One thing I observe about my favorite paintings, Froud and otherwise, is that the artists never seem to have been in a rush, where there's a string of jewels or a tree full of leaves. They're all there. Nothing is skimped on. And I was determined to do that here too, especially since the backgrounds are boring, of necessity. I modeled the texture for this group because I couldn't make all the backgrounds interesting and have them bleed into each other neatly and keep the focus on the characters, so I just made it all vague. Poured my energy into the figures instead. My inner critic whispers that I could have added a touch of landscape to each one, but she says a lot of shit I really should not listen to. Lithium's necklace of prayer beads is meant to also evoke ball bearings, by the way, and the feathers by his ear are blue heron feathers, which are spiritually associated with peace. Moving on, we find ourselves encountering sodium, which is also soft and volatile, but I assigned her the card of mischief, because sodium is associated with unhealthy food and toilet bowl pranks. Granted, we need it in our diet, but I would argue that we also need a little mischief in our diet too, so to speak. It was difficult to nail down the color of her fur. I could see her in my head quite clearly, but it took a while for my art brain to catch up. For example, while I knew I wanted her dress to mimic a Himalayan salt lamp, there was a lot of little adjustments to do before I was satisfied with it. I love the ham on the platter, not just because it's a high-sodium food, because it kind of feels like homage to Sam I Am, you know? You're seeing some of those adjustments I talked about now, with the frilly edge and more patches on her dress, like she spends a lot of time in trouble. I also gave her more hair and a slingshot and a few other details, because she was looking rushed. We've already talked about that. Her posture is not at all realistic. In fact, it bears more resemblance to folk art, which is ironic because I'm working right now on the illustrations for my next book, and it's supposed to look like folk art, and I'm having the devil of a time trying to achieve that. Got some kind of mental block, I think. Wish me luck. Now you see me fussing with details, pushing and pulling the values, making her pop. Which brings us to Potassium, who I painted as an old lady troll because ancient people certainly used potassium for all sorts of things, even if it wasn't, strictly speaking, known to be an element yet. Potassium gets its name from potash, and it gets its symbol from the Latin word for potash, kalium. I very, very much enjoyed making Potassium's solo video, and I went on a tangent about the Hobbit movies, and it's the first of the alkali metal videos that I would actually recommend, because I'm very much aware that my earliest stuff is pretty rough. I'm keeping it all up on the channel because it might be interesting to see me learn to find my feet. But at the same time, I'm gonna put these group videos into their own playlist. When potassium is isolated, it looks really cool, like a metallic stick of butter that a cat has been licking. And I did try to capture that sheen in her dress. Her apron is meant to evoke potassium-rich feldspar, and that bread is, of course, banana bread. I adore her crazy, exaggerated hunchback. It reminds me of the Igor clan in the Discworld books, although part of me is morbidly curious about what she would look like as a figurine. This might be the kind of thing that only works from one angle. Her hair turned out a lot more reminiscent of troll dolls than I intended. I was actually really just focused on making it the color of potassium's water flames. Finally, her plate needs to be willow-ware patterned, and we're crossing the finish line, and rubidium. Guys, full disclosure, I am still not pleased with how rubidium turned out. Its uses are so far-flung, I decided its handle would be dexterity, but then my character design does not reflect that. Let's look at it together, okay? You can tell me in the comments if I'm way off base, or if you have suggestions for changes to the painting or to the handle. We're into trollish territory now where we haven't been before, so even if you've seen all of my previous videos, this is new footage. And one of my self-perceived mistakes is in sketching that magnifying glass in their hand. I just really don't know why that is a thing. And in a few weeks, we're going to look at another element with a magnifying glass, only he has a much better reason for having it. The hair is the right color, but it's way too big. We will address that part, but looking at it now, I love that red vest, and it's gonna go bye-bye, damn it. I kind of love those pants, though. I would totally wear bright purple cargo pants, and the face is just so lovable, you know? My take on it is, if I were to put them on one leg or something and give them back that precious red vest and replace the magnifying glass with, I don't know, a sparkler? What do you think? Should we make adjustments this late in the game? I say, sure, possibly. Indeed, and I should film it and post it for my patrons over on Patreon as a bonus update video of awesomeness. Yeah? Or no? Rubidium, by the way, was named for the bright red lines in its emission spectrum, and I like leaning into that. It is used in timekeeping and fireworks, and also in a lot of extremely technical-sounding lab-speak applications that I'm not ready to try and understand yet. Maybe that's why the magnifying glass? Hells. I hope some of y'all are chemists so you can tell me if this sucks. Repost it. Tag a chemist. Cesium. Yeah! Cesium I am pleased with. Cesium is one of the 4 elements that is liquid at room temperature, and I adopted to paint those as merfolk, and I was super excited to design a mer troll. This period is all brown backgrounds. I tried to make it look like she's in a muddy river or some such. It was probably something I should have thought of during the planning stage, but whatever. And cesium is even more well known for its timekeeping properties than rubidium. That, and it's the atom referenced in the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment. We'll give a little nod to that in our details. Cesium is a metal with a gold cast to it, hence her coloring. It is extremely volatile, like it needs to be kept in oil or it will violently explode from exposure to atmospheric moisture. It is sold in little glass ampules, which I was trying to emulate in the design of her choker. Then again, if you use heat to vaporize a tiny amount in a vacuum chamber, it will then vibrate at a very reliable frequency, hence atomic clocks. Its flames are a lavender-ish color, and I wanted to represent a clock without showing a clock, which is why these pearls are being dropped at regular intervals from one hand to another. Those scales on her tail were not quite pleasing me, but watch my fix for it. It really works, and I'm so proud. In fact, I'm proud of cesium in general. I love her ears and her expression of not giving a shit. Whoever designs the figurine will have to decide whether she's got some kind of bra on or is free nipping it. I personally believe that our cultural taboo against boobs is stupid, and I would let her stay topless, but we'll see. Tiny tangent, speaking of weird cultural stuff, surely I'm not the only Gen Xer who sees like and subscribe as this decade's leave a message at the beep. Am I? Because back when there were answering machines, remember, everyone put that in their outgoing message, even if it was like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Just for funsies, I'ma bring it back. Leave a message at the beep will be code for like and subscribe. And you'll know what I mean, but outsiders will be totally confused. Our final troll is little francium, who represents ephemera because it decays so quickly. Francium is very radioactive, and no one has ever had enough in one place to throw it in water, so while it probably would violently explode into flames, there's no way to know what color they would be. I try a couple of things with her hair, so don't get attached to it when the details get laid in. It was surprisingly difficult to make it look like she was spinning clockwise. Like, at one point, I had her hair spinning the wrong way, and it just made the whole thing look wonky. Her face needs to get tweaked a bit before she looks right. There was a certain something that I was hoping to capture, and I think I eventually got it. She's still a troll, so long limbs and largish hands are the rule. It's funny, the back and forth here as I try to get going on the right track with the features and the gesture. Even sped up, you can tell that I had a bit of a time with it. This face is the final face. I finally managed to make her look the way I wanted. The struggle is real. Here comes the first iteration of the hair, and once again, because this is a theme with me, it is too big and not quite right in every way. Now, francium, I guess it's francium. It's named for France, after all. Anyway, it shows up briefly, one atom at a time, in a mineral called thorite, so I gave her dress a thorite texture, also made that rock she is dancing on thorite. There's really only the tiniest possibility that a given thorite sample has a smidgen of francium in it. There are only a few grams on the entire planet at any given time, and which atoms they are changes constantly. You will observe that I am starting over on the arm, and that is because I'm making her limbs look transparent, as though she is vanishing as she dances. Her necklace, if you look closely, has 3 charms on it: a red dragon, an aqua door, and a green clock face. And this is because when francium's short life is over, it decays into either radon, astatine, or radium, which are recognizably affiliated with these symbols. And I know this even though I didn't have to look it up so clearly as a memory aid. It works beautifully. As I do the written descriptions of each element for the Oracle deck, I have been having a marvelous time choosing a quote to start each one. I try not to choose anything terribly obvious, and I go for the things that I already love. I ended up, as you see, matching her hair to her fur color because otherwise that whole area just looked confusing, a little too gray. And I haven't written francium's description yet, but I think the quote I'll use is Amanda Palmer. When they put me in the ground, I'll start pounding the lid, saying I haven't finished yet. I still have a tattoo to get that says I'm living in the moment. Wouldn't that be perfect? If you want to read them like hella early, because the book isn't coming out till I don't know when, I'm posting them as often as I can for my patrons over on Patreon. Sometimes that's once a week. This month it's like every day. So I'll link it below in case you want to join them. And those are the alkali metals, my beloved humans. I hope this video helps you remember where they are and what they're like, their personalities, their chemistry. Just a little bit. I hope you like this new format. Let me know in the comments, and I hope you join me again next time. Not sure when, but soon, for the alkali earth metals, the second group. I love you dearly, and I'll see you then. Leave a message at the beep.